Welcome to this explainer. Today we're jumping right into a true mechanical mystery, a hidden danger that's literally lurking under the hoods of some of the most beautiful, high-performance vehicles on the road today. If you own, or even just admire, a supercharged Jaguar or Land Rover, a Range Rover Sport, a Discovery, maybe an F-Type or an XF with those incredible V6 and V8 engines, you absolutely need to hear this. These engines are famous for their instant, breathtaking power, but there's a silent, or rather, a slowly rattling killer that can take that masterpiece of engineering and turn it into a massive repair bill. So we're decoding the secrets of the supercharger, stripping away the mystery, and showing you exactly how to protect your ride.
Okay, let's dive into this. It sounds kind of like a conspiracy theory, right? A secret oil, but it's actually completely true. You see, most owners of supercharged Jags and Land Rovers take their cars to the dealership, get their scheduled maintenance done, check all the boxes, and drive off thinking their engine is 100% protected. But they're completely unaware that a second, entirely distinct oil is hiding inside their engine. It's a specialized fluid that's basically never changed during a standard routine service. It is completely off the radar for most service reminders, and the kicker? When this forgotten oil eventually breaks down, it sets off a chain reaction. It produces this loud, unsettling rattle that sounds way worse and way more expensive than it actually needs to be if you just catch it in time.
To really wrap our heads around why this happens, just contrast your standard engine oil with the supercharger oil. Your regular engine oil circulates through the entire engine block. It runs through a filter and, it gets changed every few thousand miles. You probably have a pristine maintenance record for it. But the supercharger oil? That operates in a completely separate, perfectly sealed system. It doesn't mix with your engine oil at all. It lives exclusively inside the supercharger body to lubricate a highly stressed set of internal bearings, gears, and drive components. And because it's a sealed unit, it is completely ignored during routine maintenance. So you could literally have the cleanest engine oil in the world, but your supercharger oil might be degrading into this dark, broken-down sludge, totally failing to protect those precision parts inside.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how extreme the environment is in there. 24,000. That's the number of revolutions per minute, RPM, that the internal components of an Eden TVS supercharger can hit, depending on your specific setup. Just think about that for a second. While your engine might be casually cruising at, say, 2,000 or 3,000 RPM, the twin 4-lobe rotors inside that supercharger are spinning at a blinding 24,000 RPM to force air into your engine and give you that instant throttle response. The physical heat and extreme friction generated at those speeds are honestly mind-boggling. Over time, all that constant high-speed operation literally cooks and breaks down that specialized supercharger oil, and without fresh lubrication, those precision bearings simply can't survive the stress. So how do you actually know if this hidden oil is failing you? Well, it starts with a light rattle. Now, obviously, superchargers naturally make some noise. A perfectly healthy unit gives off that faint, glorious whine under hard acceleration. We all love that sound. It's the sound of power. But the trouble starts when that sound changes. When the oil breaks down, you won't necessarily hear it while you're blasting down the highway. Nope, you're going to hear it at idle. When you're just sitting in a stoplight and the road noise dies down, you'll hear this clacking or a light rattle coming from under the hood. Drivers usually describe it as sounding like something is just rattling loose in there.
When you hear that specific rattle, you're usually hearing the failure of one very specific component, the nose drive. The nose drive is the very front section of the supercharger, the part that physically connects to the belt driven by the engine's crankshaft. Inside this front housing, you've got the pulley shaft, the front bearings, some seals, and a really crucial little piece called the coupler or isolator spring. When that supercharger oil degrades and loses its lubricating power, this coupler isolator spring degrades right along with it. The copper tone corrosion and surface wear take over, the spring gets loose, and boom, that is exactly what creates that clacking, rattling noise when you're idling.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this matrix of noises is basically your diagnostic cheat sheet. We start with that light rattle at idle. As we just learned, that's your early warning system. It means a worn coupler or nose drive. But if you ignore it, it progresses. A growling or grinding sound, that means the bearings are actively failing. A noticeable change in the pitch of that classic whine means abnormal wear. And finally, the terrifying metallic scraping. Guys, this is a ticking time bomb. If you hear a harsh metallic scrape, it means the bearings have failed completely and the internal rotors are physically grinding against the metal housing of the supercharger itself. At that point, catastrophic damage is already happening.
But hey, before you panic and assume your supercharger is eating itself alive, we have to look at the mimics. This is an absolutely vital step. Not every weird noise from the front of your engine is a death sentence for the supercharger. The external belt drive components, the parts that actually spin the unit, can perfectly impersonate an internal failure. A worn accessory belt can chirp or squeal. A weak tensioner can cause a slapping sound that sounds remarkably internal, and worn idler pulley bearings, they can produce a whining or grinding noise that'll fool even a seasoned mechanic. So these external, much cheaper components absolutely have to be checked and ruled out before anyone jumps to the conclusion that the supercharger is toast.
Let's assume the belt system is totally fine, and the noise really is coming from a worn nose drive. Historically, the old way of fixing this meant replacing the entire incredibly expensive supercharger assembly. I mean, even if 90% of the unit was in perfect condition, a worn bearing in the front meant tossing the whole shebang out. It was a massive financial hit. But today, thanks to specialized European auto shops like Autoscope, we have a much better way: targeted replacement. Replacement nose drive assemblies are now available for a lot of Jaguar and Land Rover applications. This means we can restore the supercharger to perfect working order without the crazy expense of replacing the whole complete unit. It's a real game changer.
So how exactly does this targeted repair work? Well, it's definitely a serious mechanical undertaking. The supercharger isn't just bolted to the side of the engine like an alternator, it sits dead center, deep in the heart of the engine's performance system. Step 1 involves carefully working through multiple layers of the intake system just to reach it. Step 2 is pulling the entire unit out of the vehicle for a meticulous bench inspection. You really have to get it on a workbench to properly examine the drive pulley, the throttle inlet port, and the nose drive itself. Once the wear is confirmed, Step 3 is where the magic happens: installing a brand new, genuine Eaton replacement nose drive, like part number 365027. This swaps out that damaged front assembly, replenishes the system with fresh, specialized oil, and literally saves the owner thousands of dollars.
So, the crucial point is you have to act fast. That targeted, money-saving nose drive replacement is only possible if you catch the problem early on. There are times when a full, complete replacement of the entire supercharger is absolutely necessary. And when does that happen? Well, if there's internal rotor contact and housing damage, or if there are broken internal parts or damaged rotor coatings. It also happens if the supercharger oil is heavily contaminated with metal shavings from those disintegrating bearings. Or, honestly, most commonly, it happens if the vehicle was simply driven way too long after the initial noise showed up. That same rattling noise that starts as a manageable, totally serviceable nose drive issue will snowball into a catastrophic failure if you just turn up the radio and ignore it.
Which brings us to the core message of today's explainer, summarized perfectly by the experts at Autoscope. Addressed early, this repair can save thousands of dollars while returning the engine to smooth, reliable performance. You don't have to be a victim to sudden mechanical failure. By understanding that your supercharger has its very own secret oil, and by recognizing that a light rattle is an early warning system rather than just some annoying background noise, you are empowered. You've got the knowledge to take your Jag or Land Rover into a specialized shop, ask the right questions, and fix the problem intelligently and affordably before things spiral out of control.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on the next time you get in your car. Is your engine's background noise trying to tell you something? We all get so used to the sounds of our daily commute that we tend to tune out the slight changes, the new clicks, the faint rattles. But as we've seen today in the high-stakes 24,000 RPM world of a supercharged engine, those subtle noises are literally the engine's way of asking for help. So the next time you turn the key, maybe turn down the music for a second, roll down the window, and just listen. It might just save you thousands of dollars. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive in this explainer, and keep learning.